My perspective is obviously about young people, so we have seen the results of the Royal Commission, young people feeling a little bit disenfranchised with what Catholic social teachings are about, the changing nature of family as well. We've also seen young people come in from families who are not necessarily the typical nuclear family, a very large investment up front, because if you think about all the little costs involved to take the kids out on camps and social outings, even some of the diocesan events, even to go to there, it does incur a cost to travel there, to provide meals, to make sure that if we're running a local event, we're paying speakers. So we obviously want to keep the calibre and the quality of those events, quite high. In terms of needs, I feel young people really desire to have, that active voice in their communities. They want to also feel valued as contributors. We often see church spaces as places where we just go to mass, to pray, and then we leave. But it's, church spaces are often more diverse than that, yearning for a community that's very genuine. They want to see people who they want to see people that they can look up to. They want to see role models. They want to see people who are making real, tangible changes in the world. Catholic Youth Parramatta, the different conferences that I've gone to over the last couple of years, we have lots of leaders. It is a year of youth, and we're also starting to see a revival of youth groups all across Western Sydney. So a lot of that is, making youth a priority. Partner with a diocesan initiative called the Faith Feed. It's for young people aged around 25 to 35, and we're starting to see that partnerships work because it's about conversation. And if you think about the work that the Catholic Church is about, it has always been about relationships. Partner not only with diocesan initiatives, but also to work with other parishes as well, can really help offset the costs. One of the ideas that we were talking about in a youth ministry meeting was inviting key different people within the diocese to talk about vocations. Now, as a parish initiative, we can see, that might be a bit scary because we need to ask these important people. But if we do it as involve 2 other parishes or 3 other parishes, then we're doing the same thing, but we're spreading the cost, and actually we have greater exposure.
Our diocese is continuing to change. Initially, perhaps it would have been much more a sacramental-based response, but now it's much more diverse, particularly as we start to explore notions of community going beyond the confines of the physical parameters of our worshipping spaces, how to be more flexible, and how to be able to listen to what the needs of the people are. Some of the things we weren't prepared for. How do we respond to those on the margins, those who are nominally Catholic but who aren't worshipping every day? How we as a church include them as part of who we are, but also respond to their needs. I think one of the greatest shifts that I've noticed is, in the past we always spoke about the parish as being the centre of the church. Reality is that it's our schools. Parishes resourced to be part of school, and school part of parish. So it's no longer, I think, a divide between the two having to work together in a holistic way, not being parish, but being the diocese. And one of the shifts I'm aware of in the last few years is that we no longer talk about Parramatta Diocese as Western Sydney, but it's Western Sydney and Blue Mountains. Today, I think as priests we're called to be responding in a much broader context, and our knowledge needs to be broader as well. I'm very conscious that there are many things I'm doing today that just were not dealt with in the seminary. The cultural diversity, for example, the situations that families find themselves in, the reality of what I'm experiencing on the ground today was never touched on in the seminary. Also a lot of the financials, the planning, the budgeting, was just not touched. As a parish priest, there's an expectation that we be responsible for that. but we've had no preparation for that. Being able to have people we can rely on who can advise us in the decisions we need to make. We tend to be very siloed and to be aware that we're not meant to be in isolation. Some of the business things that we need to deal with, work health and safety, insurances, HR policies, etc., they're all the things that we have no experience in. And for each parish to have to duplicate that, I think, is a bit of a nonsense. So to be able to cluster parishes together, as we've started to explore some of the different areas that we need to be up to speed on around professional standards, work health and safety, our audits and things like that, it seems to be more and more is being put onto the parish, and we're not skilled to have a sense of the integration between different parts of the diocese as well, so that we don't have 5 different agencies all requesting at the same time us to be acting in different ways.
It's unfortunate that I mainly see people at their worst and in most need. We have a lot of areas in Blacktown local government area where people are unfortunately left to their own devices with little support from both government and non-government organisations. They're being the victims or targeted by other members of the community because of their behaviour, their looks, their cultural background, or they may even have an intelligence disability as well. They have very few friends, and when they are put in housing commission units, it's basically a very small room. It's incredibly small. It's just one big room, a bed, a kitchenette, toilet bathroom facilities, and maybe laundry facilities. And that's it, that's their world. Because once they do leave that room, some do become targets because of their soft nature and the fact that they are easily read as being the potential target by some of our unscrupulous people in the community. We do have a lot of bad apples out there that will target some people. The opportunities are vast in Blacktown. We have youth problems, we have multicultural problems, we have Koori problems. We do have a lot of strategies. A lot of them are working, a lot of them don't work. We got some issues with kids and the changes in society and the environment now too. Whereas in the past, kids would have a real structure in a lot of family life, but now we're seeing more and more kids leaving that family group and branching off very, very early. And I'm saying, you know, we have kids 12 and 13 and 14 being placed in a lot of group homes in the area. Unfortunately, kids, I'll use this term, they run riot within those group homes. They really do get away with a lot of issues where they can wander out. They may assault other people within the group home. They may sexually assault some people. When I first started here, Blacktown was mainly a real white community. And when I say white, well, now Anglo-Saxon community. Over the years, it's changed. We've had a large increase in the Filipino population, a large increase in, of late, in the Indian population, as well as the Chinese population within the area. And not that there's great concerns in relation to crime, but there are concerns about some kids purposely isolating themselves within their own cultural groups. And it's great for these other cultures to come in and supplement, and we benefit together, all of us, with these cultures here. You might see an African lad with a Filipino lad, with a white lad or girl or boys in little groups, and it's great to see. In Western Sydney, we don't have the beaches. We don't have the mountains or the views or all this. We are a very proud community based on sport, based on, and I do believe, a growing acceptance of accepting everybody out here, regardless of age, regardless of culture or language. If we didn't have sport in Western Sydney, we would be a miserable community.
I think now with so much information available to young people. The idea of, oh, we can just Google that if we want to know what it is. I think there's a greater importance on the why we do things, why we have these rituals, why we do things a certain way. I think that is a more important question to answer for younger people.
A healthy and connected community is one where there is actually connections between the people, between the administration and the people. Fundamentally, a parish has to be about the people of God. So how do we build those connections, particularly as we grow as larger communities and more diverse communities, and where, particularly in our schools, where people are living in different parts of the diocese but coming together for education, how do we connect them beyond the classroom? Larger isn't better. Actually having communities within communities is very important. So it's looking at what unites rather than what are the differences, and without being burnt out in that process of trying to manage that as well. So it's a collective approach, I think. The notion of local church is the diocese, not the parish. So how do we connect together into parish, as well as connecting into the different agencies within the diocese, and we share that common sense of a goal, a mission. We focus in on cultural diversity, and certainly that's part of the reality of a very multicultural diocese. But diversity goes beyond that. There's diversity in age, diversity in educational backgrounds, there's diversity in religious practice, those who would see themselves as very orthodox and that others ought to be at that point, and there are those who would feel, well, the most minimal religious practice is fine as well. There's the diversity in relationships. Those are in single-sex relationships. Those are in marriages that aren't recognised by the church. So whether it's through divorce and remarriage or co-partnering, that's the kind of diversity that we're called to respond to. How do we respond? Be evangelising and able to listen to where they're at and respond to that without compromising who we are and what we stand for.
Knowing and feeling confident that you can go to wherever you want to and feel safe, and at the same time feel happy. Being proud of where you work and where you live and where you play. Because there's no one in Western Sydney who's born evil. No one at all. I think they're victims of poor parenting, poor environment, poor support, poor schooling, even poor policing. Because sometimes we don't get it right as well. They don't have that strong work ethic very early, and that's when you have generational issues in relation to people being living off welfare. In my upbringing, like I went to 30 different schools up to year 4, right? Because of what happened in my particular circumstances. And then things settled down. But I remember Mum and Dad going to churches and getting food vouchers to go to the supermarket. And we survived on that at times.
In terms of supporting people with mental illness, I would say it's not there yet. Only because most of youth ministry has been through younger people, not necessarily people who have reached adulthood. So the maturity in dealing with situations, if someone has a mental illness or they're having a panic attack or they're feeling depressed, the response to that might not necessarily be the best at the moment. So we used to be part of Vinnie's, but we haven't, mostly because we don't have the information about it. In our wider parish community, we are looking at ways of engaging or even outreach, going out and actually serving the people who are on the fringes. But that's a whole parish effort. That's not something that is strictly youth-centred or youth-focused.
In the Westmead area, that community is a collection of communities, and not all of which are Catholic, but we are, and how do we respond to that? So how do we have open doors to welcome all people? One of the challenges I see is in some of the faith diversity that's there. In one of the schools in the Westmead community, one of our Catholic schools I should say, one of the school leaders, student leaders, is Muslim. Now technically that ought not to happen, but if our schools are to reflect the communities that the members of the school come from, then we need to be diverse as well. And listening particularly too with young people what it is that concerns them. So rather than telling them the answers, we actually listen to what their questions are, and together, through dialogue, through exploration, look at new ways of being church, being Catholic today. We don't have all the answers, and I find it incredibly important in my community with the schools that I meet regularly with the principals, but we sit down as peers. It's not parish priest and principals, we sit together, and also with the RECs within our schools. So there is that sense that we are dialoguing, we're bringing our different perspectives, and we're now starting to talk together. It struck me as rather strange that within the Westmead community we have 4 schools and the parish all operating separately, all answerable to different management structures, and never communicating beyond the liturgical. So it's about divesting some of our notions of leadership to look at new ways of leading community. IT and communication. It strikes me as odd that I can pick up the school's Wi-Fi signal in my parish office, yet we have a totally separate communication and IT system to the schools. 3 schools that are on the one campus. I often reflect on this. 3 separate security companies, but all using the same entrance gate.
Kids will get bullied at school. I know kids will be intimidated into providing money at school, and they don't report it. I do know that certain groups within schools, and that's within all schools, whether they're private or public, there are some bad eggs in all schools, and unfortunately they are bullied or intimidated into remaining silent. I feel sorry for the senior and the elderly in the community at times, because there used to be an unwritten rule in crime where no one ever robbed someone who's elderly or a young person. And those unwritten rules in relation to crime are gone. A lot of NGOs have good intentions. I don't think they're too innovative at times. We need to think about, the science. We need to think about technology, engineering, maths, the arts. The arts in the western suburbs. I'm a big believer in people having the opportunity for music or for painting or sculpture, opportunity to be able to do the basics such as reading. And I think the people of Western Sydney, we could be specialists in those areas, in particular the sciences and technology and maths. We have hidden talent out here that have not been given that opportunity. We could be a hub of knowledge for this state and for this country, based upon who we are, what we've become through multiculturalism, and get the benefits and the best of everybody. And who knows where Australia could be. You have to include kids into this, because if you just have adults making all the decisions about, you need this and you need that, no, it doesn't work. Forbes was closed down because of the floods, right? And certain towns outside, and people thought, they need this, they need that, they need this, they need clear the courts so kids can play basketball. That's what they didn't need at all. You know what they wanted out in those particular areas? Open the coffee shop. And that was the project. They opened the coffee shop, people gave it and started talking, and then they supported each other about the problems that they have with the floods. They had that ability to go and get a pastry, and then, because that was the meeting place. And that's what you got to find, those meeting places for people.